when you have fear of God, you care for whoever that is beside you, whether your wife, your husband, or your children, even a friend. You know how to treat him or her. The wife will definitely respect the husband. The husband too will respect the wife. But when you don't have the fear of God, you think you are the head and she is the tail. Nobody is the tail, nobody is the head. We are all equal in the presence of the Lord. So we should make ourselves happy. That's what we are in this world. When you make your partner happy, then definitely the happiness will pass to the children.
Yes, my name is Paul Meffo, head of operations, Beats Media. Just to recognize the fact that domestic violence exists, and men essentially would take part of the blame, most of the blame. Having said that, I also need to say that the woman, as she is, has so much power within her to change the course of things. The way she carries herself within the family, the way she carries her activities within the house, goes a long way to not only the husband protecting her, because it's a natural thing. The man wants to protect the woman, but he also gets some signs, some signals from the woman that enables him to do that. So if the woman stands in her position, in her post, she will be able to not only influence the man, but the society in general. And that's why they say that women are our mothers and they are best managers. So I give the honors of not only changing the course of things to the woman, but I ask men as well to recognize that the woman, without them in their lives, without in the men's lives, they are nowhere.
The best way to address this issue about domestic violence is to really go back to the beginning, go back to the basics, and acknowledge and realize that the marriage institution itself is probably the first institution that the Creator put in place, where this institution is a partnership. We have to realize our roles and responsibilities in marriage. Now, this is what I understand from a biblical perspective, that the husband has to love and lead in the home. It is the responsibility of the husband to love their wife, just as Jesus Christ loved the church and died for them. And in response, the woman then submits in response to the husband's love. The woman submits. And submission is not about what you do. It is an attitude of submission.
My name is Andrew Ubono. I am of the Immigrant Council of Ireland and also of the Talazans. I just want to make a very short comment. I don't think that domestic violence can be attributed to African culture. It's not. No, the reason why I say so is because since I was born, I never saw my father raise up his hand against my mom. My father was a traditional chief in my place. He never ever did that, and each and every one of us grew up like that. If my wife was in the audience here, she would say that she will actually confirm that I've never ever spoken even harshly to her, because so it's a matter of individual perceptions. That is primarily it's not a cultural thing, because the violence, these institutions were set up in Ireland to protect women because it was existing in Irish culture.
I know that Bride Price was meant to be relationship building, but it's no longer that. When Barry pointed that out, we have had this discussion before and privately. I know what Andrew is the point that Andrew is trying to make, but it's no longer like that. For instance, take myself. When the parents sit and discuss on how much should be paid for me to marry a man, they'll use my education. Because I have 3 degrees, there's value attached to that. And they'll use my father's social standing in the community. There's a value attached to that. So what is it if it's not price?
In our culture, there is no way, like this man was saying, my mother we were 11 in our family. My father had the money, but my father never knew how to pay the school fees. My mother did. All the money in the family was in the hands of my mother. In our system, I never saw my father beating my mother. In our culture, a kind culture of Ghana, there is no way you are supposed to touch your wife. If you touch it and your wife has a power to report the issue, you need to pay something. You call before the chiefs, and you'll be fined for doing that. So in our culture, and you should also know that what is happening in our system now. Previously, the culture is in what we call it's a crossroad. We are changing most of our culture now, yes. And with the human rights issue coming, Ghana, we have domestic bail. If you touch your wife in Ghana, you go to prison like what is happening in Ireland. So those people who are saying African, things are changing everywhere.
Respect the man, and men should respect the women. And what I need to say is just to add on what Michael said, I feel there's a lot of support for the women around the world, because all this domestic violence has been going on for the past couple of years, over 10 years now, and I believe there's so much support for the women out there. They need to bring a support for the men. Men are suffering a lot in domestic violence, and as a woman, I'm here to support the men in domestic violence.
I just wanted to make one point very clear, because I was just eating up here. When we were talking about education, I think we were just trying to hide behind that. We can't hide this, ill-fated, domestic thing, behind education. There's this doctor, he's a psychologist, he's called Kwame Ngisa. He said, domestic violence knows no culture, ethnic, race, social class, or literacy boundaries. So we have to be aware of the fact that you could be a professor and you still find yourself in that mess. It's very important that we realize that, okay?
I think you've been talking too much about domestic violence on beatings and abuses, but from my own experience, the highest point of it is psychologically, and emotionally. You could beat me anyhow you want, but the bruises would just cure like 1 day, 2 days. But as much you could torture me in the brain, and it stays forever. It could make me feel bad. I've had friends where they're very educated. The girl is she's doing her degree, but he is not as high as she is. But at home, she's like the peasant. She feels very stupid. She feels very naive, but she goes to school at the same time. So it's not always about the beatings and the slapping or everything. It could just be talking to someone could damage that person forever.
Sisters, can I encourage you to support other sisters? I have given evidence in cases where women have been assaulted within inches of somebody taking their life in courts in this country. Unfortunately, African men perpetrate violence against African women, and Irish men perpetrate violence against Irish women. I accept that completely.
Like talking about children being abused psychologically, like from the effects of the fathers attacking their mothers. Sometimes it could be them being attacked as well, because like I noticed they didn't address like the types of domestic violence at the beginning, which includes incest as well, upon children. So if they can address that, that would be great as well.
All right. We've come to the end of the discussion. It has been really exciting, but also it has been very challenging to all of us. Do you have a comment?
My comment is just that being here, talking about the issue, it's a good illustration that, people are becoming conscious.
Absolutely.
That's it.
And basically, I think there shouldn't be any justification whatsoever for domestic violence in the home. And just also to say, there is an organization that looks after men who have suffered any form of violence, and it's actually was formed by a woman. It's called Amen. I think they have a website, so you can access it. Not that I've accessed it myself, but it's very cool.
I just want to concur with the audience that this is a very serious issue, and as Barry has indicated, that the women must stand up and be counted, and if necessary, we need to create a support group for those women so that they can have somebody to relate to.
Domestic violence is a real issue. It's a global issue, and there's the need for serious education. When I talk about education, I'm talking about counseling. People who want to get into a marriage need to go for counseling. Get the counseling because it will help you.
I think one point I'd like to leave is for us to engage, for us to consider how we engage with Western culture, and for us to see whether there is a crisis of identity. In relation to Ireland, most couples or marriage people started their relationship and marriage from Africa, and they've lived all their lives there and they've just come down here. The interaction between the new culture, change management, are we dealing with it properly? Are we forgetting our culture? Are we simply, swimming in, European culture, thereby creating conflict at home, crisis of identity? Maybe not. But one thing we need to do is manage change properly. And I think if we start managing this change properly so that we have a balance, we have a work-life balance, we understand we're in an industrial society here where relationships have changed, where women have to go to work, where men have to go to work, where the traditional role of childminding is no longer that of the woman, where the woman is not, her office is not in the kitchen there. There are issues of challenge both for men and for women. And there are cultural issues there. And perhaps maybe a subject for discussion another day, are we truly losing our identity in Ireland?
Viewers, we've come to the end of what I can say is one of the most important discussions that I've ever been involved in here in Ireland. One thing that we've learned is that domestic violence is a real issue. It is not just an issue in Africa, it is an issue all over the world. 9 months ago, I was in Afghanistan, whereby more than 87% of the women in Afghanistan have experienced domestic violence. Domestic violence is evident here in Ireland, whereby more than even 20% of the women in Ireland have actually experienced domestic violence in one form or another. And there is huge misunderstanding of what domestic violence is. A lot of people think domestic violence is about the physical aspect of it, but there is the psychosocial aspect, there's the sexual aspect of it, and even the incestual aspect of domestic violence. That if we don't actually understand what exactly it is difficult to come up with strategies that can actually help. So I am actually looking forward to seeing everybody who is in here maybe next year of another Africa Day to be talking about much more important issues as well going forward. And I want to congratulate the audience, I want to congratulate the panel for taking time out of your busy schedules to come to discuss such vitally important issues. Thank you.
Viewers, I know this is an emotional issue, but all I can say is that men, respect your wives, and wives, respect your husband. This is what Parrot Show is about. We've got brilliant panelists, we've got brilliant audience, and the issue has been brilliantly discussed. You're going to be seeing more of this. And if you have suggestions or you have a comment to make, please call us on the following number. On that note, we've come to the end of the show. And please join us next week when we bring you another exciting edition of Parrot Show.